Hey guys, Billy Price here with Lead Symphony. Today, we're going to be talking to you about what Google and other search engines want to see on your website. Lead Symphony takes care of a lot of this for you, in that we go ahead and put things in the order Google wants to see them in. The main stuff that we want to talk about today are things that you may want to consider in your other content, and definitely things you want to consider as you're building your job pages. The number one thing, our slogan is because content is king. The reason is content is king. We preach it. The entire web seems to know it. If you build good content, you will get traffic. How do you build good content? There's a lot of checklists that Google has to follow. Just other search engines tend to follow the same guidelines as Google. So as long as you cover Google, you're going to be covering most of everything else you need to cover. So number one, always create your content with your end user in mind. That is, think about the person you're trying to reach and make that content be good for pretty much everyone. So as you're creating that content, answer questions that your user is going to have. They want to know if they should be using synthetic felt or underlay that's natural fiber. They want to know if they should be doing a shingle roof or a metal roof. They want to know if there's a leak, how do you fix that leak? They want to know if there's storm damage, what all do they need to do to get insurance covered for that storm damage. Always think about what your end user wants. And that's where the answering questions comes in. A end user is going to type in missing shingles storm damage. They're not going to type in the name of your company. So make sure that when you're building your Lead Symphony job story titles, you type in missing shingles in Maryville, Tennessee due to storm damage instead of just Lightspeed Construction. Write all your text as simply as possible. Write it so a seventh grader can view it, is the old rule of thumb for newspaper writing. If a seventh grader can read it, most people can read it. It's not necessarily about what a person can understand, but about what they can digest quickly. So if you write really complicated stuff, it takes longer to digest it, and they're not going to retain as much. Make sure that your stories have beginning, middle, and an end. That usually starts with an inspection, then has the progress on the site or before and after photos. And then the end, try to include a testimonial if you can get that at all. Make sure you've got a secure site. By a secure site, I mean that you use HTTPS:// and not HTTP://. You can get a secure server certificate from your web provider. They usually cost between $39 and $125 per year, depending on what type you buy. Sometimes that's called SSL. Get your people at your web provider to install that for you. You can knock your entire website offline for 3 days if you install it wrong. So either get your web hosting provider to do it, or get your web developer to install it for you, because there's a few things in there that you just can't get wrong or you're going to mess up. Anytime you're putting your URL, that's your website address, use the HTTPS://. That'll make the user more likely to type that in, and that'll make you score higher in Google. When you're putting in a YouTube link, YouTube will always use that secure header, the HTTPS://. Get tired of saying that sometimes, but YouTube will always use that. Make sure you use it too. Don't just use HTTP. Anytime Google sees HTTPS, they treat that as a preferred link. Make sure your content is responsive. That means making sure that your site will work on a desktop, a tablet, and especially on phone. About 60% of all websites are viewed on phone. The days of sitting behind a computer screen have gone past us. And even though a lot of us still look at websites on a computer screen, when we're looking for an answer to a problem, a lot of times we're sitting in our car in traffic, or we're sitting out at a doctor's office or something like that, just typing on our phone, looking for an answer. Responsive, all it means is that it changes sizes depending on the device. This checklist here, that's actually Google's checklist for a website. So they want to know if the URL stays the same and does the HTML stay the same. It can go either way, but if you can get green arrows or green check marks on all these, your site will come up higher in searches. The exception to that being separate URLs. Sometimes you'll see the mobile version of a site being mobile.yourdomainname.com. If you're using WordPress and using a responsive template, it will always stay the same on the URL. All right, the common thread that runs among everything that Google wants is they want your site to be faster, they want it to be secure, they want it to be usable on desktop or phone, and they want it to be helpful. This quote here is actually from Google. The key to creating a great website is to create the best possible experience for your audience with original and high quality content. If people find your site useful and unique, they may come back again or link to your content on their own websites. This can help you attract more people to your site over time. That is Google's guideline for creating it. So make sure that the content is original, which you'll be doing if you're using Lead Symphony to create your job pages. Make sure that it answers questions. Things that are important to both you and to Google are to make sure you have solid branding on your website. That means using your logo at the top of your website. It means using your logo at the bottom of your website. It means when you refer to your company, you refer to the actual company name and not to just whatever your internal phrase for it is. Example would be when you type on your website, use Lightspeed Construction instead of just Lightspeed. When you type in an email or something like that, always make sure you use your full company name. The number 2 thing is to make sure that your website is problem solving. Usually when people go to a search engine, they're looking for the answer to a problem they're running into. Number 3 would be backlinks. Those are links from other websites to yours. A real good way of doing this is by getting reviews at places like Facebook or Google. You can also go out and publish with places like Yelp, even though I'm not a big fan of Yelp. A lot of people seem to use it. Angie's List is another great way to get backlinks. Number 4 is multiple media formats. When you tell something, tell it in text. If you can, tell it in video, and definitely use images. A lot of times people will skim over your text and just look at the pictures and their captions. Number 5 is geographic targeting. If you want to come up in a near me search, you got to make sure you use the city and state or the zip code anytime you're typing in a problem. The last thing is to have a clear message about who you are and what you do. That may be found on your About Us page, but it really needs to go in everything that you're doing. If you're typing in a new job story, make sure in there that it is clear about the problem that you're solving. Make sure that it's clear about what you did to solve it. That is pretty much it. If you can cover these points in both your Lead Symphony job stories and the rest of your website, you will get Google traffic. And this is the basis behind what SEO is in its whole, or search engine optimization. Make sure your website solves a problem. Make sure you tell them who solved the problem, and make sure you tell them how they solved the problem, and you will get traffic. That's it for today.